right. Well, namaste. Peace to everybody. Hope you guys are enjoying your 4th of July. What a wonderfully hot day here it is. I'm sure it is for you guys in Texas as well. Quite amazing, all of the wonderful things that are floating around in the cosmos, and all of the things that are going on and being revealed are just absolutely mind-boggling, to be quite honest with you. And so we're going to finish up the teachings of Silvanus. Really nice, powerful teaching here at the end of this. But I wanted to share a little bit. I've been blessed. I've told so many people so many truths that have been thrown in the trash, and so I have to keep exposing the truth. And so it has come to my attention in the last few days that because a tablet that has been hidden from humanity for over 50 years, and every scholar that has ever begun to interpret it inevitably puts it away because they can't deal with what it's saying. This is somewhere in the neighborhood of around, from where we are, around 5,000 years old. Predates Moses by 1,000 years, verifiable. And folks, I haven't missed it. So this wonderful, amazing tablet in cuneiform that most people will never see, much less hear about, has repeatedly caused scholars to be really, really massively stumped, because, you know, even if you're a scholar and even if you do have exceptional intellect or intelligence, and certainly most scholars do, sometimes that's the biggest problem with them. But when you encounter something that so devastates all that you've been taught and all that you've held to be important your whole life, that's really difficult. I think even the best people struggle with that. And so the journey on this tablet that I'm sharing with you about is quite amazing, the reality of where we are and what is. And I know I've told you that I am very conscious about paying attention, and of course several times Source, he hasn't quit speaking those words. He keeps constantly directing and bringing things to me. And so this said tablet that has been hidden, that nobody wants to reveal, right now it is under lock and key, supposedly in restorative mode, and has been since the 70s, and yet they will not allow anybody to see it, and they won't allow anybody to see it because of what it says. Thank goodness the one guy in the 70s who did get to see it, photograph it, talk about it. That's how the scholars do it. They take these tablets and they photograph them, and then that way they don't need the tablet. They can put it up safe in a humidity controlled environment, and then the scholars can take the pictures and they can read the dialogue. Well, it appears as if some roughly 5,000 years ago, there was a priest. His name wasn't mentioned, and it wasn't mentioned on purpose. And this priest was told, and I won't tell you by who, but was told that he was to go up to a mountain and he was to receive something. So this priest, it took him 3 days. They do have astronomical pieces, which they always did, and without ever using the name, the place, how could I say this? The place is Sinai. And so 1,000 years before Moses, there was a priest in Mesopotamia who was told by God to climb a mountain, that he was to receive something. And so he spent 3 days climbing a mountain in Mesopotamia that coordinate-wise would make it be Mount Sinai. They understood that the purpose and the part of the reasoning and why you see so many things in the biblical context that have to do with mountains is because there's apparently a spiritual thing that goes on when you get above the horribleness of the lower planes and the people. You get up away from humans by yourself, there are things that happen. And we know that's true because we find Paul at Sinai, we find Elijah at Sinai, and supposedly Moses at Sinai. And we also find a Sumerian priest 1,000 years before that climbs a mountain told by a god to go there and he would receive something. And so he climbs the mountain, and the scribe, this is all first person, this was out of his words, out of his mouth to a scribe, a Sumerian priest to a scribe. And he told him of the goings on and the things which this God that came down from the heaven in fire, so much so that he had to prepare special cloth that was not at all normal, had to be soaked in a special precious oil, and he had to wear that because otherwise it would kill him. And so he climbs the mountain with the cloth, and the God comes down in fire, burns the top of the mountain, which still exists today. He gives him something for humanity. And I say it like that because it's so difficult for people to separate that you've been compartmentalized into different systems, and none of them are true. They're all just boxes to put you in. If you have a box towards believing that you get how many ever virgins if you kill enough humans, then they put you in that box. If you have a box that you believe that everything's wonderful and everything is great and the world is all peace, then they put you in that box. And that's what, through the course of your life, your fate will only bring you those things unless you are a special person who is willing to open yourself to truths that are outside of what you believe. And that's very difficult for most humans to do. And so he goes up on the mountain. He spends 3 days on the mountain. That's kind of funny, isn't it? Now remember, I'm going to keep saying this because unless you get this point, you miss the whole point. And lots of people miss the points. 1,000 years before Moses. So what the God that comes down in the fire, that burns the top of the mountain, that he has to have special cloth on, what he brings to humanity before it ever existed was the instructions for how humanity was supposed to live. Pre-everything. And so very, very, very meticulous, very precise are these written documents. So I'm just giving you a quick skim. It's absolutely quite phenomenal how specific the things are. And as I've told you in the past, one of the things that I've recognized is that every story I read, whether it's the Atrahasis or the Enuma Elish was the Babylonian version of the Atrahasis, and those two were both written versions, copies, modifications of what the Sumerians truly wrote. When you read the Sumerian creation and flood situations, you get 2 or 3 times the amount of detail. Why? Because they did not possess the detail in Babylon that existed in Sumeria at the time it was written. And so one of the ways that you can validate the reality and the truth of Sumerian documents and why so many scholars are in such a upheaval is because there is no way you could manufacture that much precision and it all fit together. It has to be reality. And there isn't any writing before Sumerian. That's another huge piece. And so what the God that comes down on the mountain, they actually had a name, and he is tied to Anu, but he is not Anu. Anu is the god of Anki, his father, And the God of Enlil, his father, he is the God of heaven. That is the God under a different name that has been presented to you, and you have no consciousness of it because you don't know that he exists and you don't have any clue about what his name was. But he had a name and people called him Anu, the God of the heavens. And so this God that came, that was full of light and full of fire and bright and brilliant, so much so that he would have ruined this priest's eyes, that he protected him by telling him beforehand. I'll give you another piece. It's always the beforehand. It seems as if a lot of people really hate the fact that Source already knows what you're going to do before you do it. And he's not afraid to tell you so. Or maybe he doesn't tell you and he lets you fall into whatever you fall into. So this priest goes up on the hill, spends 3 weeks. Let me give you a few pieces, not in total detail, but just a few pieces. This was really quite mind-boggling. He gave him a list of rules that all of humanity was to live by. There's 10 of them. They have a special day that was created for worship. They have food laws that were created for humans to survive and live long, healthy lives. Yada, 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 10 times. So all of the stuff that we read and then recognized that maybe this isn't the truth, it is very probable that every one of those things are the truth, but the more ancient truth, which is quite profound. So there was a day that was set apart for worship. We know from other texts that the Anunnaki told humanity that they were the one that taught us how to worship. Prior to the Anunnaki gods coming to this earth, humans did not know, or what were existing as humans, they were Neanderthal type people. And they were taught by the Anunnaki how to worship gods. And that's where we get everything that we call worship, came from the Anunnaki. And so this God that burns things, that's full of fire and full of light, gives him another thing along with these commandments, if you want to call them that, instructions for humanity to survive. Why are we in such a moral state right now? There's your answer. He gives him another commandment. He commands him very precisely, and I mean to the umpteenth detail, that you are to build an acacia wood box that is covered on the inside with metal, and in it is going to be presented not a tablet, but there will be a power, energy, force. If you had studied any Sumerian, you would see that the Anunnaki gods always carried a basket with them. That basket was divine energy. It was power. It's what would make things, if in our terms we might call magic. It was the power that drives the universe. And so one of the main commandments that he gave him was that he was to build this box and cover it on the inside, because the energy had to be constrained or it would kill everybody that encountered it. Didn't that sound familiar to you? 1,000 years before Moses ever walked on this earth, if he ever did. Many people are questioning now whether that's even true, because all that the book of Exodus is a rewrite of a Sumerian tablet, with the Jews being the people. None of it's real. It's ancient. It's old. It's not Jewish. It never has been, and it never will be. And so he was given to do these things. He came down, he brought the rules down, they put them out through Samaria, they had Sabbath days, and they had worship days, and they had food laws, and they had all of the other things that the 10 Commandments, like how to behave. You know, I shared this the other day about people being in other people's houses. That has nothing to do with anything except your responsibility for your behavior in someone else's domain, was the whole concept. Well, somebody blessed me this week. I love you to death. Thank you, Brother Cliff, very mentally, because it absolutely, I know that what we've been talking about is happening in you. I can't say that about a lot of other things, but I can say that about you. And so I have a brother in Austin, Texas that I've known for 30 years. He's been in church with me, and he's having struggles, and it's going on everywhere because Source has told me about these struggles that people are having, and they're unconscious at all to them. They have no knowledge. They think they're doing what they think is right, and it's a total ludicrous joke. So he goes fishing this past week, he said. And thank you for acknowledging my birthday. I appreciate that too, brother. He goes fishing, and he says this to me. Brother Rob, Source said to me, and he has had encounters. We constantly talk about the near-death experiences he's had and other actual spiritual encounters that he has had in his life, real ones. Not I wished I could, so I make a story up. And he says this, he says, Brother Rob, he says, Source said to me, just like when you catch a fish and you pull it out of the water, it dies. He said, when a man gets out of the place he's supposed to be, he dies. You take that for what it's worth. It's exactly what I said last week. So here is the reality for us, dear friends. The world is propagating all kinds of things about what reality is, and most are buying it. When the numbers say that only 16% of humans are going to experience the positive side of what's coming, I think maybe that's a long stretch. But it definitely is quite amazing how much the Bible was written by the hand of scribes out of the Sumerian text, and yet nobody cares about the Sumerian text. Source told me to keep going this week. I had many thoughts myself, much frustration and anger and all kinds of things to deal with. And Source says to me, you do not worry about what people do to themselves. You keep coming. And so I'm here to tell you today that I intend to keep coming, and I intend to keep telling people the truth that nobody else is telling them. There are already some other well-known people making a whole bunch of money that are starting to pick my story up and share it. I know that that's how reality works. When the word is spoken, then reality begins. That's why I sometimes don't tell people what Source has said to me about them, because the minute I speak it, it begins to activate in them. And I don't always have an interest to see people destroyed, but reality is reality, friends. So, you can take those few things for whatever you want. Once again, thank you, Brother Cliff, for your kindness and your spiritual intuitiveness, because that was a huge, huge word Source gave to you, even more so that you recognized it. And as far as the thing about Moses and the priest of Sumerian folks, I don't know about you, I kind of found myself bouncing between angry, freaked out, scared, because here's the things I'll say to you. If all of those things are true, and until the scholarly world begins to actually get right, I don't know if that they ever will. And there's so many Sumerian tablets, which is why they are now embarking using AI to interpret them, because the AI can interpret a tablet in a day, and it will take a scholar 3 years to do so. And so I actually believe that the purpose of AI existing in our world right now, although it's going to be used for all kinds of other horrible things, the purpose of AI, that the universe gave us AI in this time that we're living in, is because otherwise we're not going to know all that is coming for us. And it has improved. That's why we're seeing more of these texts right now. But I will tell you, there have been a lot of scholars who would not put their name on the interpretation of what that's, because they were told that if you do, you're not going to like what happens to you. So if telling the truth now brings a death curse because you will destroy something that humanity has created, I guess people just have to decide what they're going to do. You can either die for wrong or you can die for good. It's that way. So, back to the Nag Hammadi. The teachings of Silvanus. We'll finish this up here in just a few minutes. Really, really, really beautiful principles in here. Some of them are if you listen and if you are conscious, you'll see that there is a certain level of love, certainly, and there's also a certain level of, how do you say it? I guess correction, if you would. Many people today think correction is unspiritual. And I'm going to tell you that correction is one of the major pieces of spirituality, or more better, the accepting of correction. And so, Christ the Divine Son, consider these things about God. The Almighty, who always exists, was not always reigning as king without also needing the Divine Son. Now that might sound sacrilegious, but if you can allow yourself and your perception is capable of grabbing hold of it, they really didn't say anything at all that's heretical. It's actually more an allusion to the self-created one, if you would, which is kind of the concept, the Son that we call Christ. Everything subsists in God. And we saw that several times over the last weeks. The texts have shown us that it's not God in us, it's us in God. And so everything subsists in God. Everything is God. That is, the things that came into being through the Word, through the Logos, who is the Son, as the image of the Father. If you have seen the Father, you have seen me. Are you looking physically? That's where many of the pictures that get painted about God having a beard and all of that stuff is because him and Jesus are supposed to look the same. He has no form. He can't look the same. Neither can you look like him because you were made in his image. And so, God, that is, the things that came into being through the Word, who is the Son, as the image of the Father. So how can we see the Father's goodness? We see the Father's goodness through the goodness that Yeshua portrayed. For God is near at hand, and he is not afar off. Where is his limit? Divine entities are all related to God. Did you hear that? So all of these things that everybody is selling fear factor about on television as far as spirituality goes about disclosure, even our vice president can't figure out whether the beings that exist are God or whether they're demons. And whether they're gods or demons is irrelevant. They're all part of him. God's gift to the human race. Therefore, if this divine agrees with you in anything, if I sit here today and I tell you anything and source agrees with it, that's all that's important. Even partially. So even if I missed a piece, so here's what's really cool, because that applies to Christianity. That applies to Judaism. That applies to Muslims. Because if any part of what they say agrees with what God is, then God agrees with it. That's pretty heavy. Even partially. Then know that the entire divine agrees with you. See, he's talking first person to someone. So when I speak to you and I say I speak the truth, and Unky encouraged me that it was the truth, that is the truth. or he would have never said that to me. He would have corrected me that I was lying and deceiving. Instead, he tells me I'm growing and learning and doing better, and things are going to be phenomenal, and don't worry about what isn't. Focus on what is. So some people may not have the luxury of knowing that they're walking in the place in which they're supposed to be. Lost and hopeless, wandering around, thinking they control anything, when in reality they control nothing. Because whatever's coming for you is coming, and you can't stop it. You can only learn how you handle it. And that's all. That's the extent of your free will. Fate puts you in a place. How you handle is what you get. So therefore, if this a divine agrees with you in anything, even partially, know that the entire divine agrees with you. But this divine is not content with anything evil. So right there you get the separation that everybody wants to hide and say doesn't exist anymore. For it is this which teaches everyone about what is good. You can learn. It's funny because I've heard several people that I listen to that have brought some really powerful about the alignments and all that's going on in this world. We have like 7 different major incidents that are happening this month, folks. The spiritual, there are going to be people that are going to be destroyed, and there are going to be people that are so glorified they'll never have ever walked in the realm in which they're headed to. And I can't answer which one you're going to be. I may know some of who some people are going to be, but I also can't answer that question because all of us have free will to change and behave in the manner Source desires. And if we don't, there's a price to be paid. Everybody gets to choose. So, for it is this which teaches everyone about what is good. What does? The bad. This is what God has given to the human race, folks. I've said it in the past many times, and it became quite a revelation 6 months, 8 months, a year ago, when I realized that oftentimes, and it is helping me to overcome situations that are very difficult, and I can now a lot of times smile when something bad happens or a behavior is offensive or on, and I'm not maxed out at full level on this, but I am growing in it. And I now, instead of being upset, I now smile and say, okay. And the reason for that is because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I control my destiny. The only thing that matters is what I do. It has nothing to do with anybody else. And the minute that humans begin to see that, they begin and will begin to see that and will begin to take responsibility for their behavior. And if they're suffering, why they're suffering is because of your decisions. And the minute you begin to do that, then you either prove that you are a believer in truth or you prove that you're not a believer in truth. Either one is okay, but it's going to be exposed either way. That's what he's doing. We are the spirit people talking about that there is going to be they've been talking about it for a year and a half now, that things that are false are going to start being exposed and people that aren't authentic are going to start being exposed. And I spoke that word and instantly it happened. God, if we could believe him in the manner in which he wants us to. So, this is what God has given to the human race, folks. So that for this reason, every human might be superior to all of the angels and the archangels. It was given to us for a positive purpose. Doesn't say that that's the way you'll use it. The availability, the possibility is there for you to accomplish that. And so when God sends messages like the one I was talking about earlier, when God sent him that message, he has an opportunity to then decide how he makes his next decision. And how he makes his next decision determines what happens to him. God does not need to test anyone. He is not testing you. We've been so programmed that everything is a test, and there may be, but the point that I want to make to you today is that's not God testing you. I believe that the tests that come in you are actually you testing yourself. Your spirit, your higher self is going, are you going to be spiritual, or are you going to continue to be carnal in your mind? And people continue to be carnal in their mind mostly. And so, he knows all things, oh really, even before they happen. I've valued, I know y'all don't know it, but there is another blessed teaching that I got to watch, and the people who function in my realm, it's understandable why I don't have a lot of friends and why people choose to walk away from my energy. I received a word this week that says that the people that are flowing away are low volume, and that he is bringing people who will rise to my presence. I don't have to lower to theirs. They will rise to mine. And y'all might think I'm intense, but you ain't seen nothing yet. And so, if you want to lose, lose. I'm happy for you. I'm not unhappy for you. I'm not sad for you. You got what you wanted. But it is your choice. And so, he knows all things even before they happen. And he knows the hidden things of the heart. That's why he says words to men and women about things before they happen, not after. Usually based off of the heart. So people walk around with corrupted hearts while they convince themselves that they're not the problem. And as long as they do that, there is no outcome for them but destruction. There is none. And some of it's already been set in stage. They are all revealed and found wanting in his presence. There's nothing you're going to hide from him. Even the most perfect spiritual person is wanting in the presence of God. Let no one ever say that God is ignorant. For it is not right to attribute ignorance to the creator of every creature. For even things that are in darkness are before him as if they were in light. When we find in the Bible about the darkness of the heart, when God looks at it, it's bright as day. He sees everything that's there. He knows everything you're thinking, everything you're planning on doing, every destructive thought that you have towards people. He knows all of those. It's not that it's okay with him. He's just going to allow you to use it for whatever purpose and intention that you have. Because it's your choice. And so, there is nothing hidden except God alone. But he is revealed to everyone, yet very hidden. He is revealed because God knows everything. He knows your thoughts and what you intend to do. Even if people do not wish to say it. So it's not just now what you say that he hears. They will be corrected by their hearts, inevitably. And sometimes it takes massive amount of pain before the heart stands up and says what it knew at the beginning. But sometimes we need to go through pain. Sometimes we need to suffer and justify ourselves until we can't stand it, and then we make a decision again about what we're going to do, because that also is faith. So even if people do not wish to say it, they will be corrected by their heart. There is no getting away. I say that all the time, and some people get offended by it. You aren't getting away with anything, folks. And the minute that you begin to recognize and begin to humble yourself for the failures that you've made and be honest with yourself and quit being fake, that's the minute that you begin to heal. And until then, you'll stay in the cesspool you live in. Because it's not the environment that is a cesspool. It's inside of you. He is hidden because no one perceives the things of God. So is it possible then that we can gain a revelation? We're not going to see him as far as seeing him, but we can certainly see his hand the closer we come to him. We can certainly have him speak a word and then sit on that word and watch it manifest and know what God's nature is. If he tells me something, he's going to do it. And it is right, and it is real, and I can believe it. So, he is hidden because no one perceives the things of God. What are the things of God? Are you blessed because you have a lot of money? Are you blessed because you have a lot of work? Are you blessed because you have this horrible mind that thinks horrible things and you think you get away with it? Are you blessed by that? I see it all the time. I hear people say those words all the time. People steal things and then talk about how Jesus blessed them. Goes on every day in every Walmart that exists in America. For he is incomprehensible and unfathomable when it comes to knowing God's counsel. And of course, we do find that beautiful principle over there in the Bible, and it says it like this. It says that God's way are not your ways. His ways are so much higher than you, you'll never even be able to conceive the ways of God. That you are carnally minded, and to be carnally minded is death. Always associates. Brother Cliff, your words absolutely parallel every truth that I've ever taught about this subject. It is a fearful thing still, no matter what spirituality says, it is still a spiritual thing to fall into the hands of a living God. It hasn't changed. For he is incomprehensible, unfathomable when it comes to knowing God's counsel. In fact, the way that we learn to know his counsel is we learn to know his counsel through the engrafted logos which he gives into people that are pure. Okay? Anki wrote that there were a specific class of humans on this earth that are priesthood, in their priesthood no matter where they live and what they are, and that they will have a connection with the divine where the divine will give them divine insight. Now here's the difference. There is a difference between mediumship, which I have to tell you, most mediums and most spirit people have no consciousness at all about who is talking to them. That's why I tell people about, I do believe that there may be spirit forces that are benevolent towards us, but John tells us in the book of John that you are to judge every spirit because not every spirit is from God. And nobody believes that part. They listen to the archons and speak words all the time that came directly from the archons. Talk about the Akashic record. The archons run the Akashic record. They always have. And nobody understands. It's sorrowful. He is hidden because no one perceives the things of God, for he is incomprehensible, unfathomable when it comes to knowing God's counsel. Further, it is difficult to search him out, difficult even to find Christ. So everybody who told you that all you have to do is say, "Oh, Jesus, please forgive me," and everything's okay, that prior to the lying Christian nonsense, that did not exist in humanity. It is difficult even to find Christ, for he it is who dwells in every place and yet in no place. For no one who wants to can know God as he is. So we won't even, when we return through the monad and we go back to the pure light, when you die, if you are aware, if you make it through the councils, if you ascend to the monad, when you are returned to the fullness of consciousness, which is exactly what happens, the light, the purest love, the amazing, the wonderful, all happens through the monad. And if you make it to that point, you will maybe then be able to see, but I'm not quite sure that we as sparks can still comprehend the wholeness of Source. And as I've shared earlier, a few weeks ago, even the Anunnakis knew there was a source above Anu, the God of heaven. And so further, it is difficult to search him out, difficult even to find Christ, for he it is who dwells in every place and in no place. For no one who wants to can know God as he is, not even Christ or the Spirit, or the chorus of angels, or the archangels, together with the thrones of the spirits and exalted lordships and the great mind. That's a concept that I think Source will have to reveal, the great mind. I think that there's some significance to what we are there. If you do not know yourself, you will never be able to know any of these. Just so you know, in love and kindness, dear friends, whether you like my method or don't like my method, I told you all of those words. I've been telling you that for the last year. It's about yourself. It's about yourself. It's about yourself. Look inside yourself. Look and see who you truly are, and then you can destroy your ego and become who you truly are. But until you do that, you're walking around as an ego, as a carnal mind, if you will. In fact, he says you can't know any of them. You can't know the archangels. So what about all of these people who have no knowledge of the truth, and yet they're talking to beings? That being is whoever that being tells you that being is. That's all. And you're supposed to become mature enough so that you can discern both good and evil, the Bible tells us. Many people are discerning evil as good. And if you ask them, they're at spirit conscious level. So, the concluding exhortations. Open the door for yourself. You don't believe it? You've been told here, and I'm sure at times in every person's life who will ever hear this, at some time in your life, someone else has told you at least pieces of truth. And no one had the power to open the door for you, only you can. And if you choose not to, then you choose not to. It's really quite amazing how peaceful and free even both sides of the equation happen, because all of it is based off of simply the purity of your heart and your choices. And you'll prove the purity of your heart by your choices. If you quit telling people the truth because people get offended, you have proven your heart. If truth is not worth fighting for, even if you have to lose people, then you don't love truth. And if people leave you because of truth, you should be thankful. Open the door for yourself, that you may know the one who is. Look at this other thing. Knock. Oh, this sounds like you found in the Bible, but I'd like to have you notice the differences. They're subtle maybe, but not at all. Listen at that. Open the door for yourself, that you may know the one who is. Knock. Where? On yourself. That the word may open to you. For he is the door of faith and the sharp sword. He became all for everyone, because he wishes to have mercy on everyone. And just because that's his wish does not mean that's going to be what people accept. It simply means that he always wishes the best for all humans. My child, prepare yourself to escape from the world rulers of darkness and the air of the sort that is full of powers. A blessed Sumerian tablet I got to read lately, it's been very quite heavy, tells of the 12 things that attach to us spiritually and destroy our life. And what's really sad is that takes utmost diligence to free yourself from those things. Most people don't have the fortitude according to the Sumerians and will live their whole life with this pest ruining their life. That's why you hear people like Joe Dispenza and other most notable speakers that tell you you are the destroyer of your own life. Because you're being led by a pest that is ingrained in your mind and you've accepted it as reality. Do you have to? No. Can you change it? Yes. But it doesn't happen easy. Maybe some of you have known changing some of your traits are very difficult to do. It's okay, dear one. I'm aware. Source is aware. And every other human who's ever desired to walk towards light is aware that there's nothing easy about this journey. But what people are falling back into is the same thing as Christianity. If I just tell Jesus I love him and ask him for forgiveness, then I'm saved. That's the whole preface. Why? Because that's as far as they want you to go. It is a manipulation. And a lot, not all, but a lot of the spiritual movement is just duplicating Christianity in a different form. Everything's good. If you'll just be happy, even when things are bad, everything's wonderful. And I'm not against positivity, and I'm certainly not against understanding the power that exists inside of us. It is the only path to. But friend, just because you can find that path exists, and just because you can begin to walk it, does not mean that that path is easy. That's why we are told in the Bible yet again, straight is the gate and narrow is the way that leads to God. Doesn't sound like an easy, broad path. It's always been the same. It was the same in Samaria 5,000 years ago as it is today in 2026. So if you have Christ, you will prevail over this whole world. What you open for yourself, you will open. That also goes back to our thoughts. If you believe that you are weak, then weak you surely be. What you knock upon for yourself. See, the beauty of this is everybody got really happy because they didn't need a preacher anymore, but they never found out what the rest of the story was. And I can tell you right now, none of those things that came down on the mountain would have come down if it had not been a man who was subservient, humble to God. None of that would have existed. So, what you open for yourself, you will open. And just so you know, that is an amoral statement. What you open for yourself, if you open destruction for yourself, destruction is what you get. If you open for yourself blessing, blessing is what you get. And that's for each and every one of us. Without fail, without question. No argument, conversation, dialogue, or any other thing is necessary. It simply is. You are already receiving that. So, what you knock upon for yourself, you will knock upon with benefit to yourself. Help yourself, my child, by not proceeding with things in which there is no profit. My child, first purify yourself for the outward life. Which immediately goes back to what Yahusha said, that it is only when you make the outside like the inside, that means pure, and you make the inside like the outside, that means exposed. So when you become purely exposed, and I've been receiving a lot of those messages lately about it's time for me to quit worrying about all the people that don't like what I say and speak my truth with power. There's no question that there's going to be an outcome from that. So, by not proceeding with things in which there is no profit, my child, first purify yourself for the outward life, that you may be able to purify the inward. So, honestly, if you look at that statement right there, is so profound. There is so much power in that one little statement that it's not even funny. Because you get the connotation that if you're not willing to change who you are on the outside, you will never ascend spiritually. And I believe that there's starting to be manifestation of that being true. That's why somebody in Austin, Texas, fishing, who nobody knows anything about, can get a divine message from God that comes straight to him, and it validates every single thing that's been said in the last year. It is what it is. Truth is truth. So first, purify yourself for the outward life. So what if we just recognize this? I've said this a couple times, and I'm going to say this to each and every one of you. It doesn't matter to me who you are. It doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter what your struggles are. It doesn't matter even if your belief and thinking processes are corrupt or they're not corrupt. The most amazing thing is that when I quit the pretense and I begin to be authentic and be who I am and be okay with who I am and know that I'm okay with Source, the minute that I begin to do that, all of this stuff becomes much, much easier. It's not easier to deal with people. It's not easier to deal with pain. It's not easier to deal with life. It's not easier to deal with any of that stuff. It's simply easier to deal with myself. And since that's all that's important, we better be very careful judges about what is ourself. And past that, it's all good. Because destiny is going to bring me to my next datum point and what I do when I get there. Source has already said that, folks. There's some things that are fixing to bust wide open. May have something to do with here, may not have anything to do with here. In fact, I may not even be here. And that's wonderful too, if that's his will. So, first purify yourself for the outward life, that you may be able to purify the inward. Do you realize that that is exactly the opposite of what they teach you in Christianity? Oh, don't try to fix any of those things. Jesus is going to make you right inside. Really? I don't recall in all the texts that I've ever read where he's written, and I'm talking outside of the Bible, I don't recall ever hearing him say those words, ever. And if it was such a big thing that there is faith without works is dead, being alone doesn't exist, and that you can now have no works, and it's not by works, which is what supposedly Paul said, which is bull. Really? I'll be. I wonder if James, Yeshua's brother, knew what he was talking about, since he slept next to that guy his whole life growing up. I just wonder, did he know when he said that faith without works is dead? It's useless. Because what proves your faith is your behavior, the outward. Means something is right inside. I don't know about you, dear friend, but that makes me happy. So, purify yourself for the outward life. What an amazing mindset difference that would make if people quit trying to be spiritual and started simply believing that they may be something more than what they have been. See, part of the problem is people sit around and whine and cry about all the things that they have been, and they never get a picture of what they could be. And so as long as you're locked in that mindset, whatever your mind is gravitating to, he just told you that. Whatever you are in your mind is what you are. So then all we have to do, dear one, is change our mind. And when we begin to change our mind, it's pretty crazy how much perception he begin to shift, because there's things I've looked at that I looked at 1,000 times, and all of a sudden they don't look anything alike. I've looked at people, and that person is not the person I've known. I'm sorrowful, it's not. I know too much. I know too much. And so then we come back to the next question. So then what do you do with that? What do you do with that? Do you begin to hate because you know too much? Or do you begin to grow because now you know something that you have to deal with? Most people will run from that. Most people will never take the responsibility for that. When in reality, the purpose of it is to bring us to a place of growth. Because I promise you, God knows everything about you. His perception doesn't change, and he still loves you. That should be good news. So first, purify yourself for the outward life, that you may be able to purify the inward. That's really it is. Maybe that seems oversimplistic to some of you, but that is really amazing. Do you realize that the whole context of that statement says that the outside has to get fixed? It is a deterrent to fixing the inside. You know why? Because it takes your conscious effort to change the outside. If you used to be something, if you used to do something, if you used to think something, it takes work to change that inside of your mind. And that is proof to both humanity as well as source of what you are inside. It's really simple. It sounds maybe horrible to some people, but it's really not. It's quite amazing, actually. It's not that you won't ever mess up, because I can guarantee you today you will. That the messing up, if your heart is right, means nothing. It simply means that you're not yet conquered your humanity. But it only opens the door to the next question, which is, now what are you going to do? And you go along and then you ask yourself again, now what are you going to do? And you ask yourself again, now what are you going to do? And unfortunately, because I know lots of people, I have them in my family who are dead bent and hell bent on constantly making bad decisions when they had opportunities to change those decisions into something that was good. But no one can do it for you except you. And if you're not one that struggles a lot with that, and you're pretty wonderful, keep walking. You're going to be blessed, and you're going to see the fruit of that. You're not held captive because all of the people around you who can't. In fact, that's one of the most emphatic things Source has been bringing to me in all kinds of different directions. It doesn't matter what other people do. It's irrelevant to me. Doesn't mean I don't love people. It just simply means I don't have the power to make you do right, and I've been wasting my life trying to help people do right when they're hell bent on not doing right. It seems like he keeps confirming with me that I'm wasting my time. I need higher people. I need people with a presence that can deal with me without being offended. And they will come. They are already on their way. However that manifests, and I don't even care. So, first purify yourself from the outward life, that you may be able to purify the inward. Don't be a merchant of the Word of God. Put all words to the test before you utter them. Don't wish to acquire honors that are insecure or the boastfulness that brings you to ruin. Well, I bet God ain't going to let that person talk to me like that. Maybe you should have listened instead of fought them. Accept for yourself the wisdom of Christ, who is patient and mild, and guard this, O my child, knowing that God's way is always profitable. And if some of you are going through things just like I am, I walk every day. I have a million things that try to tell me the world's falling to pieces, and I keep saying, Source loves me, and Source is leading me, and Source keeps saying, you did a good job tonight. Keep walking. Keep telling people the truth. Don't worry about what happens. You keep telling the truth. And so, I then simply have a choice to make. Do I? Do I look at the externals? Do I look at the carnal? Or do I even care about that? And the answer is no, I shouldn't. What I should care about is the soul. I hope some of you, Brother Cliff, don't let that word go. The archons will try to steal that from you now that you've got it, because that is a heavy piece of truth, brother. We think that we can still walk around and do whatever we want to, and somehow God's on our side. And that's what we were told in Christianity. Unfortunately, there's a whole lot more of the world out there than Christianity is that doesn't concur with that. So I hope you guys will understand. There's going to continue to be revelation about, not that these things are false, because for those of you who may not quite understand why the whole Sumerian thing is where all of that stuff started from. And if we go outside of these 4,000 years of people, it's funny that Ross and the Moses scroll says itself from a scholarly standpoint that there's only one or two verses in the book of Exodus that even were attributed to actually being spoken by Moses. That means the rest of that stuff was written by somebody other than Moses. And yet this is supposedly the law of God given to Moses. And in fact, it wasn't the law of God given to Moses. It was the law of source given to a scribe 1,000 years earlier. Now, I don't know, but maybe that doesn't do anything. I spent 2 days messed up, stumbling around going, this is crazy crap. Everything we've been told is BS. And yet then you can either choose to look and see inside of what you did get from them. That's why I see so much in the Bible. There's a lot in it. It's just corrupted. Doesn't mean everything is bad. Doesn't mean everything is good. It simply means that if you begin to tune in to what truth is, then you will begin to see a truth everywhere. And I think that's some of like what the brother experienced. He's in a very simple principle, without a bunch of, he didn't need pride. He didn't need somebody's attribution. He didn't need somebody to tell him he was tracking true with God. He knew he was. And you know what? It aligns with everything that Source says. And so I was so thankful that Silvanus put that in there, that it must align. I've said this to you guys before. Coherence is when your sine wave and Source's sine wave match. And Source spoke to me and said, everything is about alignment. You can do everything and you can do it better than everybody else. And if it's out of alignment with Source, it's still not okay. And so, once again, there'll be people that'll choose other than that. And that's fine. Because it's not going to, even if it affects us, it's not going to affect us spiritually. It may affect us physically. But I would like to tell each and every one of you today that we are in one of the greatest times that's ever been. There is more truth that is filling the air. There are more things that are on the forefront for us. Some of them will be bad for some people and they will be good for others. Some of them may be bad for all people. But I can tell you right now, just as I shared with you in the Atrahasis, that there was one that God spoke to and spared his life. And my friends, if there was one, then there can be two. And so I hope you'll take that. I hope you will embrace it. If it's difficult for you to hear, I'm sorrowful, but I think if you would ponder it for a while, you might find that there's a lot more to help you than there is to harm you. But of course, as is always the case, you must contemplate. And so, peace and shalom. I hope you guys are blessed. I hope you have fun. If you're popping firecrackers, 90 degrees at night, and firecrackers, just don't work well for me. Shalom, peace, and namaste.